sorry?
We've just taken a vote down.
Okay, well, when you're ready, let me know.
Yes, so the
Because
puppy
you
is
sign in
grown.
once and then you're done. You don't have to sign again.
Yeah, because I just, and so I had, the puppy's grown, that was him, that's a little picture. Early on. So he needed to be trained, and this could wait a little bit.
Okay, well,
But I need to get it in the puppy and have them do everything. Yeah, right. And then eventually, I'm ready to try an iPad, but first my dog needs to be, my puppy needs to be good. How are you doing? How are your children?
Shoot you an email with some suggested dates and times for the automatic library. I'll check with facilities and make sure that the library will be open. And then
Where that came up was with settlement of the historic district.
right around
Decision,
that time.
yeah, and,
Yeah. Okay.
although I played
All right. Where'd you get your degree from?
Are you ready with the TV?
2 weeks under playing from
We're ready.
City Clerk, would you call the roll?
Alderman Braithwaite.
Here.
Alderman Nguyen.
Here.
Alderman Wilson.
Here.
Alderman Holmes.
Here.
Alderman Tindem.
Here.
Alderman Grover. Alderman Rainey. Alderman Burris. Alderman Fisk.
here.
9-0.
We have a quorum. Welcome to the Monday, January 14th, 2013 meeting of the Evanston City Council. First item on the agenda is Mayor's public announcements, and I would like to ask all the aldermen if you have anyone to recommend for the ADA Advisory Board. Excuse me, I'm going to Over the Rainbow to see if anyone there would like to volunteer, but we need 4 people, I believe. So if any of you have suggestions, please let me know. And please find out if the people are interested. Thank you. Next, City Manager, do you have public announcements?
Yes, Madam Mayor, good evening. Have announcements about several items. I'm going to ask Godwin Chin, our local government management fellow, to come up and talk about our holiday tree pickup as well as our changed schedule for trash collection for the Martin Luther King holiday.
Hi, just a friendly reminder to the residents that a holiday tree pickup, Evanston crews continue to be picking up holiday trees, and all trees should be placed on parkways as trees will not be picked up from alleys or private property. Trees will be picked up on the same day of the week as your normal refuse and recycling during the weeks of January 14th, 21st, and 28th, with the exception of the holiday schedule. And residents are asked to please remove all lights and decorations and not to place a tree in a plastic bag, as this material can damage the equipment used to convert the trees into mulch. And regarding trash pickup over the MLK Day holiday, no collections will occur on Monday, January 21st, in observance of Martin Luther King's birthday, and solid waste will be 1 day behind in collections for the week. Recycling will be back on schedule by Thursday, and Friday's condominium collection will occur as normal. And that is all. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Madam Mayor, it is indeed the Martin Luther King holiday this coming weekend. There are several items of celebration on the city's calendar for those that are interested. Let me just mention a few of those. The city's official celebration will be on Saturday, January the 19th from noon to 1:30, a day of celebration honoring the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. That is a joint effort of the Fleetwood Jourdain Theater and the Fleetwood Jourdain Community Center, and that will occur there at the Fleetwood Jourdain Community Center, 1655 Foster Street. There are also additional events on Sunday, January 20th, a concert from 5 to 7 p.m. at the Music Institute of Chicago's Theater at 1490 Chicago Avenue. And then on Monday, also several items, including another event at the Music Institute of Chicago's Nichols Hall on Monday morning at 11 o'clock. Northwestern University, I believe for the first time, will be honoring the holiday with a day off. So what they have decided to do is move their event a week later, so that on Monday, January 28th at 6 p.m., Henry Belafonte will be the speaker. Harry Belafonte, I'm sorry. I need my bifocals, I guess. Harry Belafonte, singer, humanitarian, will be addressing a group at the university at the Pick Steiger Concert Hall beginning at 6 p.m. on January the 28th. So those are several items of interest regarding Martin Luther King Day. And Madam Mayor, that concludes my announcements.
Thank you, City Manager. City Clerk, do you have communications for us?
I have no communications, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Next is citizen comment, and I believe the sign-up sheets are heading toward me. Thank you very much. All right, the first speakers, please give your name and address, and you can each have, whoops. Well, everybody gets 2.5 minutes. First is Mr. Rizke, and then Jeff Smith.
I'm going to summarize some of the statements of P&D and also what the city's, Administrative and Public Works on this Lit Theater project. The Lit Theater project, and staff basically admitted it completely messed this up. The estimate was wrong. It went in and claiming it was $600,000 to $800,000. It's almost at $2 million now. As I said at the meeting, staff is incompetent, and I will stand by that because, frankly,
Mr. Rizke, please, that's out of order.
No, I don't think it is because,
I do
frankly,
believe
I'll tell you, when you do something wrong,
I
you
believe
have to
that
be held
it is,
accountable.
and I am chairing this meeting. Our staff is not irresponsible.
Can you explain to me why they can't do an estimate?
Please keep your comments to facts, not to your opinion. Thank
It's
you.
not an opinion because if it was estimated at $600,000 and it comes in at $2 million, that's not an opinion, is it?
That's a fact. You can, you're more than welcome to state that. Your opinions about people are not welcome. Thank you.
Well, it was no one in particular. It was everybody. So, frankly, also the financials of this deal make no sense. And we see that already because there's basically, this isn't going to pay for itself. This group has income of $160,000. It cannot pay back the loan. So what is the city doing? The city is giving our money away. So you explain to me why you're giving all this money to this theater group. This is taxpayer money. So you know, this is just not appropriate use of our money. And there were some statements here about economic development and redevelopment and all that. Well, I go down to Howard Street sometimes, too, and I see a lot of people down there. There's these barber shops, there's these churches, and these other businesses are down there. So what are you planning to do, displace all the people that use those? That's what it appears to me to be. So that, I think, is a fact. What are you up to, really? But this whole thing is so weak and done so poorly. To proceed tonight to vote for the construction when you have no tenant and you have no agreement to do this from anybody really is a misuse of taxpayer money. And that is incompetence. Okay?
Thank you, Mr. Rizke.
Thanks. I have two topics. I'll try and cover them both in the time allotted. I support the arts. I support space for arts instead of them having to be nomadic, and I support modest public funding for arts. That said, $1.7 million is an enormous amount of city commitment, which is what it is. I don't know of a theater group on the north side or the south side of Chicago, anywhere in the area, that would have $2 million in cash on hand to pay back a loan when it came ballooned like that. And I don't possibly see how enough tickets can be sold to even handle the debt service, let alone to pay down the principal on a loan like that. So I have to agree with Mr. Riske in his estimation of the economics of the project. I've never seen, I don't think, so much money be ready to fly out the door of this council chamber on the basis of so sketchy financial backup. There's really not even a pro forma in the city packet. I'm really kind of astonished at that. And to see it go from the scale of the project was to now $1.7 million, and before we've even seen a single change order, of which we've seen many, many changes in city projects, gives me great pause. And I'm especially flabbergasted when I contrast this to the scrutiny and even cross-examination we've seen other groups and other applicants and supplicants come before this council, ranging from Kurt's Cafe to the Tech Center. It just boggles me in terms of the lack of certainly to me, transparency, a lack of transparency, and there's been no planning behind it. It seems very ad hoc. We're committing TIF funds that we haven't even seen yet. Is this the best plan we're going to see for these funds come in the next 23 years? We'll have to tell, somebody could come along with a much better plan, but we've already committed to a theater that's losing money. So I would want to see a lot more detail before I put my name on this. I support the arts. So did they in Imperial Rome. But if bossism, favoritism, whatever you want to call it, is part of the process of supporting the arts, I'll take a pass and let the private sector do it. The second thing I wanted to mention was on the Chicago Main TIF. And here just a word to the wise is sufficient. A TIF does not generate free money out of nowhere. It's taking funds from other taxing bodies. And the only way that's a net plus to everybody is the but-for test. If but for the TIF, development would not occur. And I just don't think that this intersection qualifies because we've had 2 new buildings built at that very intersection. We've had a redevelopment of the newspaper stand, and we've had 3 applicants, I believe, come forward for the southeast corner of it. So they came forward without a TIF, so we know there are people who want to develop it. It's one of the prime intersections in all of the land.
Jeff, I need you to wrap up.
I will wrap it up with this. If tax increment financing becomes part of every deal that's handed out, if you can't get development without an incentive every time, it ceases to become an incentive. It becomes an expected entitlement. Thanks.
Thank you. Next is Trunad Riske, Carolyn Murray, and Rena Campbell.
Non-agenda topic. Okay, I'm going to try to be pretty quick and brief here. I'm just going to basically follow up in a sense with what I had to say before, but this is about this wine and cheese bar on Howard Street. Same type of problems. I'm going to just quickly go through a list of things I've discovered in looking at this. The tenants basically had little or no equity in this project. $700,000 was really used. And how I came up with that number, $600,000 of taxpayer money was used. Probably $100,000 of staff time was spent in this. As I looked through documents and things, the city had a heavy involvement in this project. The city basically built this project. This wasn't the owner doing it. The tenants had no experience to build anything. There's no return on taxpayer investment. I estimate that the loss of this over the next couple of years is between $200,000 or more in taxpayer money. Given the tenants' lack of equity, creative financing seemed to have occurred here. What was interesting, there was a CBG loan that was given out to the tenants, and it was basically secured, it appears, through basically grant money that the city gave the tenants. So that's how the loan was secured. I thought that was rather interesting. The city also is really the complete owner of this project. And frankly, as a complete owner, the city has to maintain this project. And what's interesting, the city gave the tenants an apartment to rent above the building. That apartment appears to be rented for 6 to 7 months now. But there's a second apartment that hasn't been rented. So here again, city staff is not using an asset that basically we're losing money on. So city staff has to manage something, and it's not managing it. I guess that's a fact, but I won't say anything more about what I think. And frankly, this wine and cheese bar, I consider a very much a poster child of what's wrong here with economic development. I believe a forensic audit of this project is necessary for the city to deal with the problems that are starting to occur here. And my last point is, in downtown Evanston, a private individual was basically, I believe, harassed by the city, and now he built the world of beer down there at no expense to us taxpayers. It looks like an excellent business. But we as taxpayers own a wine and cheese bar 100%. This is what our money's going for here. I think it's really very interesting. When we can't maintain beachfront property, we're going to sell the mansion on the lake. We're selling property off in deals and things, but you're not doing anything for the public. Wine and cheese bars.
Carolyn Murray, 1930 Gray. I just want to express thank yous for the condolences for Mayor Liz Tisdale, Wally and Patricia Bobowitz, Kevin and Cheryl Brown, Alderman Holmes, Alderman Breathwaite and Claudia, Chief Eddington, Officer Tanya Noble, Ron Bloomberg, Kevin Champion, Mike Jones, Detective Charlotte Robinson, Commander Aretha Hartley, Joe and Bonnie McCrae, and Petra Belcher, Lionel and Lenore Jean-Baptiste. The reason why I came here tonight, I had 3 concerns. However, I do want to let you know that I did make a phone call to the city manager's office to express my concerns directly one-on-one with Wally. However, I never got my phone call returned directly from him. I always heard that he doesn't return citizen phone calls, and now I can honestly say that he did not return my call, and that's why I'm here. So the concerns that I want to address tonight is street safety and prevention. As I have stated in the last Human Services meeting, that Justin was shot at 8 o'clock right down the street from Evanston Township High School. That would be around the time that sports practices are usually over and any staff meetings or student meetings for academics would be over. To this day, I have not received an update from the police department nor any communications other than my contacting them with information in regards to Justin's complaints and witnesses and issues that pertain to the case. Now, the no snitching police response that's been in the media. I just want to let you know that recently I was approached by a mother and her son who was beaten beyond recognition. I asked the mother, did the son report this to the police? And they politely told me that no, they did not report it to the police because look at what they did to your son. The boy went on to say that when Dante was shot and he was recuperating at his grandmother's house, and they shot the grandmother's house on Gray Avenue, that there was a camper that was assigned to Gray Avenue for 3 days. In addition to that, when Dante was hospitalized for his shooting, that his wounds, while he was recovering in Evanston Hospital, there was a police assigned outside of his hospital room 24 hours. So in response, he said, why would I tell the police? The police are not going to protect me, and they didn't protect your son. I remember an incident that happened, and Alderman Rainey received a lot of criticism because she said that one of the fatal shootings in her ward, it happened to a bad seed, and it just was a lot of comments, and oh my goodness, how could she say that? Well, I just want to let you know, Alderman Rainey, in our ward, we assign police officers to the hospital room. In our ward, we have campers outside for 3 days for our bad seeds in our ward. In our ward, you can get your house shot up. You don't even get a phone tree. You don't get a notification. In our ward, we welcome our bad seeds. We have no problem with welcoming them. And if that's not enough, when their mother gets arrested for having a gun and 31 rounds of ammo, we embrace that too. So, again, I don't know if it's called motherly intuition. Maybe it's the same thing that I felt when we were back in July and August, and Alderman Holmes and I were talking, and I said, well, maybe we should do a gun buyback. It sounds like we've gotten an increase in violence. My warning to you, if you do not take in consideration a strategic plan to combat this violence in this town, Antoine Hill will be out shortly, and it's going to get warm. And violence increases when the weather gets warm. You've been warned.
Thank you.
Am I next, Rena Campbell? Is that right?
Yes, you are.
Okay. I'm from 1527 Mulford Street in Evanston, and I have two questions that I just want to put out. I don't know that they'll be answered tonight, but if they could be answered in some public format, I think that would be very helpful for the community. One is just, what is the response time from the police department after a gunshot is reported? So I'd just like to know, what is the response time from the time of the report to the time police officers are on the site investigating? And two, is there a protocol for families of victims after an act of violence? Is there some follow-up? What is the follow-up? Are they assigned a detective? I just want to know, if there is something already in place so that people know and we can have some of those questions answered. I'm here because I'm an Evanston native. I've lived abroad. I keep going away, and I kept coming back, and I eventually settled in Evanston because I wanted my children to grow up in this special place. I don't think it's a coincidence that so many Evanston alums come back to live, work, teach, and raise their families here because we want to give back to the community that brought us up. I worry, though, that since I came back, the fabric of our community is pulling apart at the seams. By saying the recent shootings are gang-related or a family feud is disrespectful to the families of the children we've lost, of Justin, of Javar. And I understand from a PR standpoint, totally get the need, why it's a priority to present Evanston as a safe place where these are isolated incidences and it's two families, but that's not even true. By saying this, I think it makes it real easy to disconnect from what's happening and not to see it as our problem. The truth is scary, but we can't ignore. Guns and drugs and violence are in Evanston. Kids are throwing gang symbols openly in the halls of ETHS. I've heard this reported from numerous people working there. They're making open drug deals right there in the halls of the high school. Gangs are feeling pretty at home in Evanston. We need to take a stand together as a community to say, no, not here, not in our home. This will not be tolerated. And I know that so many groups have come into being out of all these different acts of violence. Mothers Saving Our Sons, Peaceable Cities Evanston, Black Men Against Violence, now Peace Pioneers of Evanston. A lot of people want to work together to find solutions. But while we're trying to connect the dots and find creative ways to engage our youth, we need the city to take the lead on this, to connect all of the dots. I just saw that Kevin Brown is, I don't know his title, I guess he's in charge now of youth
The
initiatives.
Director of Youth, yeah.
Director of Youth, and I really hope that there's going to be a very central place with information that can be shared so that we can partner with each other. Good, and I want there to be a vision. I feel like we're lacking leadership here to show Evanston that this is the place that I grew up in and I loved, and I want it to be safe. I don't want people to just think that it's safe because we're spinning the news the way we are, but that we really, truly look at each other as partners in this. And that I used to think that, you either had a choice. You'd be a part of the problem or a part of the solution. And with all of the violence that's happening now, I think that we need to get as many people on board and coming together. There's so many resources here, so much talent, so much wisdom. People want to help. We need to do better. There have already
I
been some
need you
initiatives.
to wrap up, please.
Thank you. There's been initiatives already coming out of Peace Pioneers and all these other groups with spoken word, poetry slams, rap writing workshops. We're going to be planning some dance-offs, some safe sporting event competitions across the city, and a youth summit in February to engage them in problem solving. We want the kids to engage in the problem solving. I want us to really look at this as we are all part of the problem, and we need to be part of the solution. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Madam Mayor,
Go
perhaps
ahead.
could we have Chief Jamaraz? There were two, I think, specific questions we could give pretty quick answers to. One was the response time for Priority 1 calls, which I think a gunshot would be, and the other was to just talk briefly about our victim services operation. Would that be all right, Madam Mayor?
Go right ahead.
If Chief Jamaraz, if you could just address those 2 points.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, City Council. On a shots fired call is obviously a priority 1 call. So when the call is received by our dispatch center, they quickly get as much information as they can and is immediately dispatched. And they usually try to stay on the line with the caller. So if there's any additional information that is being collected by the dispatcher, they can update the officers as they go there. Historically, these are responded to within minutes, a shots fired call, because it is a priority call. So officers are sent into the area. If any other additional information begins to be developed that they are giving out to the officers, they can respond directly to the location and probably a circumference area around there. And if there are descriptions of offenders given or additional calls, sometimes in shots fired calls we do get additional calls of loud reports coming from other people that are hearing it. So we try to narrow down that location. The second issue involving a victim service advocate is always assigned to someone who's a victim or a family member of a victim. They're contacted either by that evening or the next day. There's a detective that follows up if it's a criminal matter that's involving investigation, whether it's by youth or by a criminal investigator.
Thank you. And Madam Mayor, also, if people are looking to find a comprehensive overview of what we're doing, if you go to our website and Google Youth Initiative, you'll find a fairly extensive webpage that includes a 4-page memorandum from Mr. McCray, our Deputy City Manager, dated December 18th, 2012, that goes into great detail what we have done as a city government over the last several months, and would encourage people to
And the last several years. It's not new to us.
So we would encourage people, if they're looking to find out the specifics, it's all available. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. The next speakers are B.K. Rayo, Padma Rayo, and John Bamberg, Sr.
My mother is unable to attend the meeting tonight. She has given me her comments to read into the record. Her comments are as follows. Her name is B.K. Rao. She lives at 2246 Sherman. She says, my comments were approved by my attorney. Fellow Evanstonians, I submit to you an Orwellian animal farm, also known as the City Council. There's one character in George Orwell's Animal Farm that I submit is similar to the 8th Ward person, whose latest escapade is investing our tax dollars in her pet project, Wine Bar, Ward 8. I submit that she acts as though she's not answerable to anyone. Furthermore, I submit that her abusive and irresponsible statements about people and businesses are costing taxpayers a lot of money and making the city look
comments
bad.
are out of order, as you well know.
These were approved by my mother's attorney. They're her comments. I'm simply reading what's
you get
written.
a better attorney.
You discussed the matter with him. She further supports her statement. She says, your 8th Ward member openly said at ANPW on August 8, 2011, that she wants to get rid of Veolia. When we pointed out that such statements were cited by Veolia in its lawsuit, she giggled and made fun of it with the mayor. I wonder how much her involvement described in the Davies lawsuit will cost taxpayers. I submit that Evanstonians cannot afford to put up with such reckless and arrogant behavior for another 4 years. In ancient times, when I was teaching at a junior college, once in a while I saw bad behavior from a student from whom I least expected it. Ms. Wynn, by breaking your own rules that you're supposed to listen and not retort during citizen comment, you open the floodgates for citizens to disregard your rules, especially the made-up ones. One thing more. Ms. Wynn, Ms. Grover, and Mr. Donald Wilson, Esquire, sir. 2 years ago, you were told that the Kendall developer wrote a letter through his lawyer to the city that he hired Holland and Knight to sue the city. Holland and Knight took large amounts of our tax dollars representing the city in various matters. Mr. Wilson, Esquire, sir, I submit that that is called double representation and conflict of interest, and that you are required by your profession to report it to the ARDC. Finally, I agree with Henry David Thoreau that living trees and living animals are best. So it's your duty as human beings and as the council to save the Kendall trees. I shall return. That concludes her comments. Now my comments. Padma Rao, 2246 Sherman. My comments were approved by my attorney. At your last meeting, your third ward member broke your own rule forbidding your responses during citizen comment. I submit that when you violate your own rules, you have no basis to enforce any rules against the public. As for your third ward member's retort, St. Paul's Lutheran Church's website states that they're trying to raise funds for a bigger sink to comply with the city's requirements for their soup kitchen. To the extent that your third ward member's statement suggests the soup kitchen can operate without complying with the city's health code, I submit that her statements raise the appearance of undue influence. I submit that this declaration by a public official can be used by the soup kitchen as a legal basis to ignore the health code altogether under the doctrine of entrapment by estoppel or similar legal theory. I submit that a lawyer should be aware of the legal ramifications of violating your own rules and of your words. At your last meeting, your 8th Ward member asked your so-called law department to absolve her of responsibility in the Veolia case. Veolia's amended complaint quotes council member statements that they want to get rid of Veolia and that the city should include a clause in its contracts forbidding its contractors from doing business with Veolia. The only one who made both statements is your 8th Ward member. I submit that Veolia relied upon your 8th Ward member statements to support its lawsuit against the city, and the responsibility for those statements lies with her. I submit that taxpayers would prefer not to waste money defending unnecessary and unlawful words and deeds of public officials. Your law department's opinions include claims such as a prank Twitter account being incontrovertible proof of wrongdoing by the victim of the prank. I submit that by its own actions, your law department has destroyed its credibility. Your mayor spent months trying to silence us when we spoke about the same Kendall issue that she allowed a white woman to discuss. We opposed this council's vote at Kendall to sentence over 24 mature trees to death for no reason and to endanger pedestrians with an alley that dumps traffic onto the narrowest street. Your ethics entity has no jurisdiction over public comment or over Holland and Knight's conflict of interest or over your first ward member's violation of the U.S. Supreme Court's ruling in Nevada Commission on Ethics v. Kerrigan. Obey the law and protect the trees at Kendall. Protect the Kendall trees.
Mr. Farrar, didn't you just come up with a opinion on Veolia?
No responses are allowed. I read to you what is in the amended complaint, which is a matter before the court.
I'm asking our attorney a question. I'm the mayor of the city. I'm allowed to ask.
Not during public comment. Not during public comment.
Mr. Farrar.
Responses are not permitted during public comment for a reason. It's called the First Amendment.
Thank you very much for speaking. Your 3 minutes are done.
Your law department does not have jurisdiction over public comment either. And to the extent that they are your agent, their rubber stamp of your conduct is meaningless. Veolia cited the statements made by aldermen and relied upon it in their... Then do not open the door. If you want to end up having retorts and replies and responses, then we do it like in court. If he's going to respond,
I'm chairing
then
this
I
meeting
reply.
and you are not, so please.
I don't have to. I simply demand that you follow your own rules. I object to any violation of your rules.
Mr. Farrar.
Why don't you use that microphone?
Thank you.
I object to your violation of your own rules.
I think it has a little
And I want that objection on the record, Mr. Clerk.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, it is correct. We did review the allegations made by the citizen. Basically, the allegations in the complaint mirror the allegations made by the citizen. They're just that, allegations. No discovery has gone on in the case. None of the allegations have been verified. No depositions have been taken, so they're just that.
Thank you, Mr. Farrar. Next is Mr. Bamberg.
There actually Public Works Committee meeting on August 8th.
It is Mr. Bamberg's turn to speak.
Listen to exactly what your 8th ward member said and compare it to the statements.
Mr. Bamberg,
in
you can use
Peoria's
that mic if
amended
you want.
complaint. So it is not correct to say that there is no evidence. It's in the city's own public record. Follow your own rules.
Thank you, Ms. Rayo.
Good evening. Good evening. I'm John Bamberg. My son Javar resided at 1930 Brown in Evanston. I first wanted to ask you, Mayor, based on some of the comments that I made at the Human Services Committee on the meeting on the 3rd of December, I believe it was, and January 7th, has there been any formal investigation that has been started against the Evanston Police?
Not City Manager. Do you want to answer that?
None that I'm aware of, Chief Jamrez? No.
Okay. I just want you to know that the community knows a lot more about the situation with John than you would imagine. So just so that you know that they're watching, and if they don't see you doing anything, I just want you to know how they're about to look at you in just 1 minute, because I believe I said enough that would spark an internal investigation against the police. And with that said, I'm done with that subject. But as far as Javar goes, I'm here with his mother, his child mother, his grandmother. Next meeting, we'll probably fill this room with our family members with questions pertaining to Javar, what happened to Javar the night he was killed. Javar was killed December 12th at approximately 2 a.m. He lived 2 blocks from where he was killed. You know, as the mayor knows, no police came to the house until about 7:15 in the morning because they felt like his mother doesn't talk to police that they know of, so they waited until Pickett came on duty. Also, we saw articles, I guess, that hit the media at 11:30. From my understanding, the mayor, the chief, and the alderman came by Javar's house at about 3:30 in the evening. We still don't know exactly what happened to Javar. The chief made it his business at the last Human Services Committee to let everyone know that me and Carolyn talked to him on a two-way and that I had talked with Nortaf for approximately an hour. I would like to make this clear. Me and Carolyn was talking on the phone the night before Javar's funeral, and she considers the chief a friend of hers. She decided to call the chief. That is how we ended up on the phone with the chief. As far as Nortaf go, I believe it was Friday the 4th. I'm talking to officers in behalf of Javar's property, and they set up a meeting where I talked to a couple officers. Outside of that, not one officer has approached our home, has came to talk to us about anything. And when I talked to them both then, they gave me absolutely no information about Javar. None. They have not told us anything at all about the investigation of Javar's murder. Now, there's a lot of things I can do, like bring people in here whose family has been murdered and show you, have them to testify up here to the type of communication that they've had with the police. But the police have decided they have nothing to say to the Bambergs at all. And we don't appreciate that. He has grandmothers, great-grandparents, great-aunts, uncles, many of cousins, as you're going to see in just a minute, and they don't appreciate this. So we would like some information. We do know that the 2 detectives that's appointed from Nortaff, one of them, Javar's mother has filed a complaint against before. So has Lil John, and I'm almost 100% that we filed one on behalf of Justin before. You know, so you have officers that we file complaints against that don't even like us at all. And we just can't understand how is it, unless the FBI said, don't talk to them, how is it that no police has showed up on our doorstep to talk about what happened the night that our son was killed? And when I did talk to them, they had nothing to say to me. Basically, get out of here. Okay? So somebody needs to address this now. I'm trying to be as humble as I can right now with this situation. So I brought it to your attention. I am going to return with the family. So please, do something about this.
We will. And we will have an answer to your question.
Thank you.
Next is Bennett Johnson, Betty Esther, and Joey Rogers.
My name is Bennett Johnson. I live at 708 Washington Street. In light of some of the past testimony, it's very difficult for me to begin my discussion of 1881 Oak Street. But let me start like that anyway. Full disclosure, Bob King is a friend of mine. Well, not exactly. I knew his father, and his older brother and I were very close. Across the street from where they lived on Warren in California was the hotel run by Julia Smith Fairfax, Henry Smith and Joyce, who lived at 1900 Brown Street, again, who were friends of mine. But my position to support the project is not based on my relationship. It's because it's a worthwhile project. Many of the procedural concerns that were discussed here can be handled by the city, and I'm certain the developer would modify where it's reasonable. But remember, the purpose of real estate and development is to make a profit, and the cost involved in delays, changes in design and so forth sometimes prohibit their actual being put into play. The other point is that Mr. King has committed to the Evanston Minority Business Consortium to work with the local minority contractors and also unemployed tradesmen to make sure that this whole thing feeds back into our community. And that's where I think, well, of course, not only jobs and income, but the fact that an African American is the key developer serves as a role model for our community. He's not I can't think of the name of the guy who used to be in the Cadillac in the black exploitation movies, but he's not in a big Cadillac. He is a businessman. But let me get back to the issue that's been discussed, the matter of violence. One of the reasons why there is violence in the community, especially in the African American community, is because of the lack of substantial income to the family. These kinds of projects can help that. But it's also a little bit more than that, because you have to understand, well, let me be clear again. I was a probation officer, juvenile probation officer. I was also a high school teacher, so I understand a lot of things that goes on with young people in our community, in any community. One of the needs to realize, that we should realize as Americans in this century, is that slavery, my ancestors were slaves. We were supposed to get reparations. Some of you, in fact, the council voted in favor of reparations some years ago. But we were never paid for slavery. So that meant from the beginning, blacks in this country were working from an economic disadvantage. So there's an obligation for the community to take the initiative and do those things that help to give more money, more jobs to help stabilize the black community. Now, again, we are celebrating King's birthday in a few. In fact, his birthday is tomorrow. King stood for something. I was lucky enough to meet Dr. King in 1955, and I was a friend of his and an associate all of his life. He believes in economic development. He believed in minority economic development. He believes that a project like Carroll Place meets his beliefs, and it certainly meets mine, beliefs and goals.
Mr. Johnson, I do need you to wrap up.
Last line.
Okay.
I hope also that also meets your goals. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
My name is Betty Esther. I stay at 2031 Church Street. I'm here tonight. Excuse me. I'm here tonight to invite the council members and the community at large to the first Citizen Network Protection meeting, which will be this coming Tuesday, January the 15th at 7 p.m. at Fleetwood Jordan. We will be kicking off our effort of educating the community about how the police operate, how to be dealing with the police, and any other departments within the city. We are there to educate the people about their rights, what the rights the police have and what right the city has and everything, and to answer questions. We also offer our service to anyone that wish to write a complaint and help them to get it nicely, neatly written, and so that when it comes to summary, that it will be summarized kind of more concise. And we also will be continuing our working on an independent police committee. And I want to thank Alderman Grover for her input for that and anyone else that have some material. So thank you very much. It's January the 15th, 7 p.m., Fleetwood Jordan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Joey Roger. I live at 1730 Hinman Avenue, and I came tonight to thank you for the document that the city manager referred you to, the comprehensive response to youth violence. It's an enormously helpful document for all of us who are working and looking for ways to help solve the issues of violence. And it's not just the issues of violence, it's how do we keep our young people safe and our old people and everybody else. Three things particularly I appreciated in the document. The appreciation expressed to the Evanston Police Department for their diligent work to both prevent and interrupt dangerous behavior in our neighborhoods. Secondly, the creation of the Youth and Young Adult Division. I have been deeply appreciative of the excellent work of the skilled and creative staff you have brought to do this work. And thirdly, I deeply appreciate the spirit of collaboration that's reflected in the document, that is grounded in the task force that you, Madam Mayor, created for youth and young adults, that brings people together from many walks of life in our city who understand deeply that it's all of our issue and we all are looking for ways to be helpful. I so appreciate the collaboration that's been stimulated between the government, between the faith congregations, nonprofits, associations, neighbors, and individuals who care. And my final point tonight is that the CDC, as you all know, has a huge division that works with violence prevention as a public health issue, and I would encourage incorporating that into our new health department Family Services Center, that we look at violence prevention in the very helpful templates that the public health people have created for us. And in addition, thank you all for your service. It's going to be a long night. We appreciate you even when we don't always agree with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next and last is Kathy Katura. My apologies if I blew the last name.
It's Kathy Katona. I'm at 556 Sheridan Square, and I apologize. My handwriting hasn't changed since third grade. I'm a little unclear on the city's stance on the recent violent activities that have happened in the city, partially, in part because of the memo that was received by the city citizens that were summarizing the activities of the city to curb violence over the past several years. It felt very much like a defensive memo. Most of those activities cited were reactive remedies to the ailments in the city that were not necessarily supported 100% by the city council when they first came up. I would feel much more confident in the city's intentions with a city statement that acknowledges the personal loss of those tax-paying parents who have lost their children over the past several years during the few years that I have been here, and with a strategic agenda to address these issues now and in the future. Also, the most recent information on the investigation of Justin Murray's death available on the city's website is dated November 30th. I hope that gets updated quite soon so that we understand a little bit more as to what the investigative activities are, so that we as a community understand what has been going on. This is a human tragedy that has unfortunately, through mishandling, been turned into a political issue. I personally am embarrassed that Carolyn is here again tonight, rather than being home with her family and dealing with her incredibly tragic loss of her son, her 19-year-old son. It also baffles me the rhetoric that's been going on in the community regarding gang activity, single parenting, and African Americans. This is a human issue. This is not the time for the city to stand back, but to show leadership and collectively, even if it didn't happen in your ward, to actively reach out to the community to encourage ongoing strategic dialogue. And I don't mean dialogue for dialogue's sake, but dialogue that really looks to the future, that holds the city accountable to make Evanston the most livable city in the United States for all its citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes public comments. Alderman Rainey, could we have the consent agenda, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The consent agenda tonight is as follows. The Administration Public Works Committee met this evening and requests your approval. Well, first of all, approval of the regular council minutes of November 12 and of December 10. Administration Public Works Committee did meet tonight, and we ask your approval for the payroll through December 12, $2,633,746.32. Through December 16, $2,966,872.36, and the payroll through December 30th, 2012, $2,850,654.98. We ask your approval also for the city bills through January 15, 2000. These are the 2012 bills. Through January 15, 2013, $3,721,427.59. The bills through January 15th from 2013 are $2,371,418.82. Credit card activity through November 30th, $700.60. The committee requests your approval to authorize the city manager to execute an agreement for engineering services for the 48-inch diameter water intake improvement project with Carollo Engineers in the not-to-exceed amount of $159,983. We ask your approval also to authorize the manager to execute a contract in the amount of $596,615.20 with In Situ Form Technologies USA for the Cleveland and Davis Street Sewer Rehabilitation. Rehabilitation of the sewer on the Cleveland Street portion of the project is funded in the amount of $468,146.20 from the Southwest TIF. Rehab of the sewer on Davis Street portion of the project is funded in the amount of $128,469 from the Washington National TIF. We ask your approval also for the purchase of 7 replacement cardiac monitor defibrillators, pacer units from Physio Control for a total cost of $197,302. Funding is in part from a grant of $165,000 from the Department of Homeland Security, and $33,000 city match is funded from the remaining portion of a grant of $253,000 from Northwestern University previously. The police department and the committee recommend your approval to authorize the manager to approve the renewal of the annual single-source service agreement with Motorola in the amount of $77,090.76, which would be effective from January 1st, 2013 through December 31st, 2013. This is from the 911 fund in the amount of which has $216,000 for this amount, for this service. Next, we request your approval to authorize the manager again to execute a contract for the construction of a theater at 720. This is being taken off the consent agenda and will be addressed by the committee chair. The committee asks your approval to authorize the manager to execute a service agreement for the 2013 Evanston Community Television for the not-to-exceed amount of $50,000 for audio and visual recordings of meetings and operation of a public access television channel. A5, A6, and A7 are all ordinances, 3 ordinances relating to the Main Street TIF, and those staff is asking that those be removed from the agenda and be dealt with at our January 28th meeting. Ordinance 139012. The mayor recommends adoption of the ordinance 139012 to provide for penalties against persons who deface or remove public art within the city of Evanston. This ordinance incorporates the amendments approved at the AMPW meeting last meeting, expanding the application of this ordinance to all public art and not just public art murals. This is for action tonight. The Planning and Development Committee met this evening and recommend the following. Amending the plan development for 1881 Oak and 1890 Maple. This is for introduction. Next is, this is off the consent agenda, the vacation rental issue, and will be addressed by the committee chair. Next, banquet halls. The city staff and committee recommend adoption of the revised ordinance 120-012. This ordinance amends the zoning ordinance to allow banquet halls as a special use and has been revised consistent with the direction of the Planning and Development Committee and the City Council on December 10. Industrial districts, the I districts, have been deleted as districts where banquet halls are permitted as special uses. The ordinance now permits banquet halls as special uses in only B, C, D, M, and O1 and RP districts. This ordinance was introduced at December 10 City Council meeting. It is for action tonight. Next, I'm wondering if P4 should be off the consent agenda. I'm going to remove that from the consent agenda, and the committee chair will address it. Under human, there's been an amendment requested by the applicant. Under Human Services, approval of the township bills for December 2012 is recommended by the Evanston Township Supervisor. The bills amount to $146,340.21. Under appointments, the mayor is recommending for appointment to the Environment Board, David Carnes, and that completes the consent agenda. Madam Mayor, I move approval.
Second. Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. City Clerk, would you call the roll?
Alderman Braithwaite.
Aye.
Alderman Nguyen.
Aye.
Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
Alderman Holmes.
Aye.
Alderman Tindem. Aye. Alderman Grover. Aye. Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
Alderman Burris.
Aye.
Alderman Fisk.
Aye.
9-0.
9-0, the consent agenda is passed. Alderman Grover, could we have Administration and Public Works, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As to Agenda Item A3.5, I move approval of the contract with Baller Construction for theater construction at 727-729 Howard Street, the City Lit project.
Move introduction. Second. Move introduction.
I think it's for action.
Oh, okay.
It's on the agenda,
I
Madam Mayor,
second it.
for
I'm sorry, I
action.
second it.
Alderman Burris?
I'm actually confused on why it's for action. Was it on instruction in December? I didn't think it was. I went back and looked. Okay.
It's motion by business.
Okay.
Business by motion.
All right. Thank you. I'm opposing this amount of money to be spent on this project. I think at $600,000 was our first bid. I was willing to look at that because we have that much money in the Howard Ridge TIF to spend at 1.7, 1.6. It's a lot of money for one particular project. I've been very positive about the TIFs on and the redevelopment on Howard and will continue to be, but I just can't support this much money on one specific project when we have so much still to do on Howard. So I will be voting no.
Alderman Grover?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've been thinking about this one for a long time, and I think I'm still not comfortable with the price tag on it, given that it's a big investment in city-owned property where we're not quite certain that this is the use that's going to happen. That is, our prospective partner in this, City Lit, we really hope it works out, but I'd almost like to see the agreement with City Lit happen before we undertake the construction and renovation of the building. So for me, it's a matter of ordering this in a different way. So, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Rainey.
Well, I feel that I did my best at the Administration Public Works meeting, but I'll try again. The reason first of all, we had no idea what it would take actually to build a theater. And the reason we put this out to bid was because we hired an architect, Mike Vasilko, who then included on his team a series of experts who told us how to do a small theater, a small performing arts theater. There is going to be a small performing arts theater at this location. It doesn't matter to me who it is as long as it's someone who's competent. Currently, we are in negotiations with City Lit, who is currently, I think, in the Edgewater area. They're on the second floor. They are not a nomadic theater. They've been in business since 1979. And last year, while it's probably not the same as Northlight, they sold 6,000 tickets to their performances. Their plan is to conduct the location 7 days a week, filling in with dance performances and cinema. I believe they're committed enough and motivated enough to be the theater. If they are not, that would be a shame. However, there are plenty others, and the noise controversy right now is a good indication of how in demand theater space is. So the pieces of the puzzle on Howard Street, and I'd be curious to hear your ideas for future development on Howard Street, because we don't have any. We have the restaurant coming in at 623, which will be revealed to you later. We have a lounge at 629 that is currently turning away people. It's unfortunate for those who predicted its demise within a month, because that ain't happening. There probably hasn't been a new lounge or cocktail lounge of this type in the Chicagoland area, not in Evanston, that has gotten the kind of support and promotion from various bloggers and restaurant and food outlets, media outlets. And then at 72729 Howard, there's going to be a performing arts theater. And that's all there is to it. Whether it's going to be this year, next year, if you're going to drag it out forever, calling it irresponsible, so be it. I think what you're going to find out is this vision has legs, and it is going to happen. You cannot take the TIF money and spend it anywhere else. We created one of the smallest TIFs in the city of Evanston for the purpose of making a big, loud bang, and that's why we're doing this. It will be a city building. You know, I would like to hear about the expenditures that we've made at Noise over the years. I don't think there are too many operatives at that location that are making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year at their trade. So, you know, I mean, if it's good enough for Noise, if things are good enough for Central Street, if they're good enough for Northwestern, if they're good enough for Trader Joe's, darn it all, they're good enough for Howard Street. And that's what I would like you to embrace. I embrace whatever projects you all bring to us. Some of you don't ever bring a project. That's not my fault. You know, if you want to sit down and talk with me, I might help you with some ideas. But right now, we're talking about Howard Street. We're not talking about you. We're not talking about chicken and waffles, because the money on Howard Street can't go there. The money on Howard Street can't go to Maine and Chicago. The money on Howard Street can't go to the 4th Ward. It has to stay on Howard Street. You know, we've done a lot for this city on Howard Street. We have the Howard Hartree TIF. We made a lot of things happen in this town because the people in the 8th Ward put up with having a major development of big boxes on our street, right next to a residential neighborhood. They didn't want it, they learned to love it. And I'm asking you to give this a chance. You know, $1.6 million to create a performing arts theater, I don't know if that is so much. It'll be Actors Equity certified, and that's very important. You can get any kind of a theater to perform there, given the number of seats, that there is. I mean, any theater company can perform in an Actors Equity certified location. So I'm asking you to support this.
Thank you. Alderman Fisk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Alderman Rainey. No one advocates for her ward the way Alderman Rainey does, and we all can take a lesson from you. I mean, absolutely. I mean, this is your baby, and I would like nothing more than to see a theater on Howard Street. But I agree that there's some information here, I think, that probably perhaps the majority of the council feels that they need a little bit more time with. And so I'm wondering if you would be willing to allow us to gather a little bit more information. For example, I was watching the ANPW meeting at home before I came to P&D, and I was fascinated by your remarks of Northwestern University's participation in the practical theater and your reference to Julia Louis-Dreyfus. And I'm wondering if we've ever approached the university regarding their participation in a theater of this kind. It would make a huge difference to Evanston to be able to partner with their theater department and have the support and their financial support to make that happen. I'd like to look into that, and I'm wondering, Alderman Rainey, if you think that's a good idea or not. If you don't, I'd be happy to vote on it tonight, but I would prefer not to. I would prefer to try to investigate if there's an alternate way that would make some of us feel more comfortable with the financing part of this.
Alderman Fisk, I'm going to ask the city manager to describe one of our many visits to Northwestern where we did ask for help.
Yes, and the mayor and I and others met with President Shapiro, Mr. Sunshine, probably a year or so ago, maybe 18 months ago, about this very subject, specifically looking at the downtown, looking at the Varsity Theater. That was actually part of the Varsity Theater project, the study that was done. And at that time, President Shapiro indicated that the university was making investments in this area and other places, specifically the School of Music, and then the space that was going to be freed up when the School of Music in its current location moves to the new building. So they indicated at that point, while they were supportive of our efforts, they did not see a role for themselves in supporting theaters outside of their campus at this point.
I'm very sorry to hear that.
We were too.
Alderman Grover.
Thank you again, Madam Mayor. I think I agree with what Mr. Bobquist said at the Administration Public Works meeting, that now is the time to really capture the momentum of what's happening on Howard Street and make it happen in a bigger, more meaningful way, and that the theater project would just fuel that fire. And I've said before, what's good for Howard Street is good for the whole city of Evanston. There's no doubt. So for me, it really comes down to the price tag, and I don't know if we can be any more creative in structuring the funding for this project. And I will defer to Alderman Rainey that when in her wisdom says that this is the highest and best use for this money from the Howard Ridge TIF. I think I would be more comfortable with this if we did have more information about what kinds of activities are taking place on the Chicago side of Howard, so that this fits within a larger context. I'd love to have more information about the agreement with CityLit and maybe have those details fleshed out a little more so we had a better idea of the feasibility of this project for CityLit, and if there are those clamoring to take this new renovated theater space, if it doesn't work out for CityLit, despite our best intentions, who are those prospects? And then I'd like to also understand, with all the work that we're doing citywide about the arts in Evanston and theater and venues in Evanston, can we figure out a way, or can someone help me understand how this one project fits into not just our great vision for Howard Street, but also our vision for arts in Evanston and theater venues in Evanston? And I don't think those are complicated questions, and I think I'm just not ready on this one, and am more than willing to keep my mind open and my eyes open on this one. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you want to answer one of those questions now?
We can. Johanna Neiden, our Economic Development Coordinator, has been in touch with our colleagues in the city of Chicago about their plans on Howard Street, and she can give a brief report on that piece.
Good evening, Johanna Neiden, Economic Development Coordinator. I meet regularly with one of the members of the Special Service Areas team that manages Howard Street, the Jarvis and Loyola area, and that works closely with the Alderman's office as well. There's a number of properties on the Chicago side of Howard Street that are presenting some interesting development opportunities. One is directly at what is our corner of Howard and Custer. It's for a large property that's for sale. We've heard that there's a number of developers that may be interested in purchasing that property and doing something, whether it's a demolition and reconstruction, but certainly the work that we're doing on our side of Howard Street has piqued the interest of developers on the other side. There's another property that's, if you head east of the 600 block, that probably was boarded up for a decade. The property owner, working with the SSA, just installed brand new windows and has put for lease signs up in the windows because it's basically kitty corner from what could be a restaurant on our side of Howard Street. We've heard also, this is coming back to our side, from the Sherwin-Williams, the vacant storefront, that there's more interest in leasing that space as well.
Thank you. Alderman Tendam.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would very much like to support this project. I think this is a big idea and can do a lot for Howard Street. But I've had a lot of emails and calls today for people in my ward asking questions that I can't explain. It's making me, to that extent, it makes me uncomfortable. And I think there are a lot of things about this I do like. I like the fact that a theater group would be actually willing to share their space during downtime to for other community programs and involvement. I think it's a really great use. So I think we can get a lot from this site and want to support it, but I would join the ranks of those who would like to wait and get a little more information.
Thank you. Alderman Rainey.
Well, I guess I'm a little surprised by this effort to delay because I've been working on this maybe twice a month for a year, and nobody here has asked me any real questions about this. I mean, we've come and reported in economic development, et cetera. And so I guess I'm a little surprised by the surprise I'm getting tonight. I thought there was support. Shame on me. I didn't do my homework, I guess. But just on the issue of the practical theater, that was not supported by Northwestern, just so you know. That was Northwestern students, and so, but I mean, it was a space probably 800 square feet, and so it was not supported by Northwestern. This should be a city project. This should be something where we say to the market, look, we're investing here and we're very proud of it, and you should invest here too. I know for a fact that there has not been a retail inquiry at Callan and Howard on the huge, I think it's about 4,000 square feet, huge open vacant space next to the smaller Sherwin-Williams space. Sherwin-Williams owns that whole property. There has never been an inquiry about that other than for social service use one time, and they turned them down. Now there are inquiries about uses for that space. That's an amazing thing. I mean, that all of a sudden we're starting to see this kind of activity. And all the members of the Howard Street Business Association are saying, asking every time I see them, and I'm on Howard Street several times a week walking, you know, where's the heavy equipment that's coming to do the theater? Where is it? To them, the presence of that activity is just going to be such a boon. We are meeting, oh, by the way, the one spot that Johanna mentioned that is up for sale, that is the Tasty Sub, the evil Tasty Sub that we have all dreaded for years and years and years. The building's up for sale. Imagine if that goes, just imagine. We're meeting in the next few weeks with the convenience store at the corner of Howard and Custer to see if we can't help them make their store look a little better. That's a very important thing. You know, the people from 415 Howard, and Joe McRae might know about this, have said to us, the management, you've got to do something about the way that place looks. And all of these things, they just all follow one another. And I know you know that. So I think that you should really find in your heart a way to support this.
Thank you. Seeing no lights indicating anyone wants to discuss this further, City Clerk, would you call the roll?
Alderman Braithwaite. Aye. Alderman Nguyen. No. Alderman Wilson. No. Alderman Holmes.
Aye.
Alderman Tindem. No. Alderman Grover.
No.
Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
Alderman Burris.
No.
Alderman Fisk. 6-3.
6-3, the motion fails. Alderman Grover, does that complete your report?
It depends on whether I need to formally move to hold items A5, A6, and A7 for consideration at our meeting on January 28th.
We'd appreciate it.
Pardon me?
Yes.
Yes.
I so move.
Is there a second? Second. Been moved and seconded to hold items A5, A6, and A7. I guess we can do all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The items are held. Alderman Fisk, could we have planning and development?
Yes, indeed. P2, it's Ordinance 1013, enacting a new Title V, Chapter 9 of the City Code to prohibit vacation rentals. Staff requests consideration of the ordinance, which enacts a new Title V, Chapter 9 of City Code to prohibit the leasing of a dwelling unit for fewer than 30 days. This addresses the operation of what are commonly referred to as vacation rentals. We discussed this in committee, and we decided that we would direct city staff to hold a workshop and to invite comments from the public that would be then sent directly to the law department at the email address law@cityofevanston.org. And we will, city manager will set a meeting time and
Yes, Alderman Fisk, members of the committee, members of the council, the committee had indicated a Saturday morning, so we'll circulate some times or some days shortly.
Okay. And then we move on to P4, which is Ordinance 95012, amending the special use for a sheltered skilled care home at 2520 Grosse Pointe Road in the C2 zoning district, which is Alden Estates. And staff recommends adoption of the revised Ordinance 95012 as requested by Alden Estates. The revisions involve the deletion of Alden Estates' request to reduce the number of Medicaid beds set aside for Evanston residents from 8 to 5. A December 26, 2012 letter from Alden Estates states they will maintain the number of Medicaid beds for Evanston residents at 8 beds, which is consistent with the expressed desires of several City Council members. The ordinance was introduced at the November 12, 2012 City Council meeting, and it's for action. I move approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve Ordinance 95012 as amended. Does anyone want to speak to the issue? Seeing none, City Clerk, would you call the roll?
Alderman Braithwaite. Aye. Alderman Nguyen.
Aye.
Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
Alderman Holmes.
Aye.
Alderman Tent.
Aye.
Alderman Grover. Aye. Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
Burris.
Aye.
Alderman Fisk.
Aye.
9-0.
9-0, the motion passes. And next we come to call of the wards. Alderman Braithwaite.
First, I'd like to quickly wish all of our residents and council a happy new year. Clearly, we have picked up where we left off from last year, and there have been some carryovers. And so, to the residents who are here, your comments were heard, and we will work very diligently to get the answers to the issues that were raised. There are a number of events that are citywide in honor and celebration of Martin Luther King. The city manager mentioned that they're on the website, and I think that through his legacy and teachings that we can all learn something. So I encourage all the residents to attend. The first ward, our first second ward meeting will be held the third week of, I couldn't do that twice if you paid me. The third week in February. The second week is Valentine's Day. So I dare not try to host a ward meeting, and so we'll have more information to follow. We will have a lot of issues that we will be addressing. We'll invite Scott Enbinder from the Dempster Plaza will be there. We have our residents who have been working on Grandmother Park will also be there, and a host of other issues. So I encourage you all to attend. The other exciting news is in approximately 2 weeks, there will be the opening of the most anticipated business in our ward for the year, which is Chicago Home and Chicken and Waffles. And I just wanted to extend a huge thank you to not only the council for your support over the past year, to economic development, who I think this is just a wonderful project, and also to Alderman Holmes, who on Sunday hosted her the 100-year celebration of Delta Sigma Theta Incorporated. And it was really that event that I think gave the owners that extra push to get things open. So I say we, because I think this has definitely been one of those businesses that the whole council and our staff has supported, are looking forward to that grand opening. Just some early stats, they've hired approximately 75 employees, and out of that 75, 83% are Evanston residents. So I applaud you all again for your support, and we're looking forward to a very nice grand opening. So that's all, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Nguyen?
No report, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Alderman Wilson? Thank you. And Alderman Holmes?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I want to say, just following up on what Alderman Brathwaite said in terms of chicken and waffles, we had such a marvelous time there yesterday, and I just want to say a special thank you to all of the city staff who made it possible, particularly to Director and Director Thomas, who helped Mr. and Mrs. Johnson get through some loops so that we could actually have the affair there. And I'm saying to everyone, you are just going to fall out when you go and see it. It is absolutely gorgeous. The outside doesn't do justice to the inside. It is absolutely beautiful. And I really do appreciate the effort of everyone and Alderman Brathwaite in terms of just being there and helping us get through it. So it was fabulous. And also wanted just to say Happy Founders Day to all of my sorors out there. And also that this Thursday is the regular ward meeting of the 5th Ward at 7 o'clock at Fleetwood. And we will have an update from the police department on recent activities that have been going on in the city overall, but particularly in the 5th Ward, dealing with the latest shootings and homicides. And also NSP2, because there are updates that have to go to HUD. If you remember, this is 2013, so we're finished with the grant, and so we'll be having an update on that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Tundem?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm happy to announce that there will be a combined 6th and 7th Ward meeting on Tuesday, February 7th at 7 at 3 Counts Park. That's at 2323 McDaniel. Alderman Grover and I have invited Dave Stoneback, our utility director, to talk about some citywide upgrades in monitoring our utilities. And Jeff Batara from ComEd will be there to talk about planned improvements for many of the areas in the 6th and 7th Ward that have had chronic power outages. There will also be representatives from the Evanston Police Department and others, I'm sure. So that is Tuesday, February 7th, 7 p.m. through Crowns Park. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Grover?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. What he said. Please, Jonas said our combined 6th and 7th Ward meeting February 7th. I also want to, if Ms. and Mrs. Rao are watching, just offer again an invitation to talk with me anytime, with or without their attorney. I'll be more than glad to, and we can talk about what they'd like to talk about and whether they feel their advocacy has been particularly effective. So they know how to find me, and I hope they will, so that we can have a good conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Rainey?
I'd like to make a referral to the Administration Public Works Committee. I would like to see the panhandling ordinance amended to include residential locations. If you read the panhandling ordinance, it includes sidewalks, it includes post office, it includes everything, but nothing about knocking on a door and asking for money for no good reason. So I want to add that. Also, we don't have. I couldn't find in our city code a requirement for licensing for soliciting at residential locations. I can't find it. So if our law department could give me the reference, that would be great. I was told that Highland Park has a great ordinance, so maybe you could send me that too. I want to talk just briefly about Mrs. Murray's comments about a homicide that happened in my ward. Could be a little different than the experience she shared. The individual that was killed in my ward was shot in the head in his car on Ridge Avenue on the 4th of July. He was 19 years old. He had 44 arrests. 19 years old, he had 44 arrests. The previous week, he had shot up Howard Street, just shooting a gun. I said at the time, and many months, because I followed this kid for years, that this was a child who was either going to end up dead or end up killing somebody and spending the rest of his life in jail. And sure enough, he ended up dead. I do not believe I ever used the word bad seed. That's not really part of my vocabulary, but if she thinks I said it, that's okay. And furthermore, we have something else in common, because I initiated the first gun buyback program in the city of Evanston. And my recollection is on one day we collected over 200 guns. And it was extremely successful. And at that time, Target provided $100 gift cards for every gun submitted. So I didn't quite understand the references that were made regarding the incident in my ward. So I just wanted to sort of clarify, if this young man had been, and I don't think it's our police department, I think it's the circuit court, if this young man had been held for a couple of weeks, he would be alive today. At least he wouldn't have been shot on Ridge Avenue, because he committed a crime that he should have been incarcerated for. And if he had been incarcerated, he wouldn't be dead, at least not on the 4th of July. So I didn't quite get her reference, but I just wanted to clarify that I don't believe I ever called him a bad seed, and that I had followed him and knew of his issues. And furthermore, he came from a two-parent family that owned their own home for many, many years. He had a very stable situation. So I don't know what the reference was. So if anybody can enlighten me, that would be helpful.
Thank you. Alderman Burris.
Thank you. I want to say congratulations to 9th Ward resident Ellen King, whom will be opening a bread bakery in the 800 block of Dempster in the 4th Ward. But Ellen is just outstanding, and please visit her when she opens. I also recently had a large event, and want to thank several Evanston businesses for making it very successful, including Wine Styles and the Hilton the Hilton Orrington, Four Finches Florist, and June's Alterations, as well as Dave Fodor and the In Full Swing Band. So thank you to all of those people.
Thank you. Alderman Fisk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to make a quick Happy New Year to everyone. And also, I've been receiving regular and even more recurring concerns from residents about the dog beach with various issues about fences and dogs and locking and access and all of this. And I think it's probably time that we reach out, as long as we're doing workshops, and invite them to a meeting. So I want to make a reference to Human Services that we find a time, and I'd be happy to host this at City Hall. But I think it's time for us to hear a little bit of feedback from the folks who use the dog beach. They pay a lot to use that, and we just want to make sure that we're doing all that we can to ensure that they're experience at the dog beach is a happy and safe one for both the owners and their dogs.
Thank you. Alderman Wilson, do you have a motion for us?
I do. Pursuant to 5 Illinois compiled statutes, ILCS 120/2A, I move that the City Council convene into executive session to discuss agenda items regarding personnel, real estate, litigation, and minutes. These agenda items are permitted subjects to be considered in executive session and are enumerated exceptions under the Open Meetings Act. The exceptions are 5 ILCS 120/2A, C1, C5, C6, C11, and C21.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Judy, is this yours?
It is.
Okay. Would you like it back?
I would.
All right. I will bring it that way.
Oh, I can email you.